This story is inspired by true events, but all names and details have been changed to protect the identity of those involved. The stadium was alive that night, tens of thousands of voices singing in unison, lights twinkling like stars against the Boston skyline. It was one of those magical evenings where music didn't just echo in your ears, it pulsed through your chest, making you feel connected to every stranger around you. People swayed, laughed, held hands, and for a few hours the world outside didn't seem to exist. But in the middle of all that beauty, in a place meant for joy and unity, a single moment would fracture lives forever. The giant screens above the crowd scanned the audience, searching for happy faces to broadcast for all to see. And then it found them, a man and a woman, standing close enough to share a secret or a mistake. The camera lingered. The crowd began to cheer, expecting a kiss, a wave, a smile. Instead, there was hesitation. Her eyes widened, his shoulders stiffened, and in a heartbeat, something unspoken passed between them, something only they understood. What happened next would ignite whispers among strangers, spread like wildfire across social media, and leave two people wishing they could rewind time by just a few seconds. Because sometimes it's not the song that stays with you after a concert, it's the moment you never saw coming. Before we dive deeper into what happened that night, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. The perfect night. The air was electric that evening in Boston. The kind of energy you can almost taste, sweet with anticipation, buzzing with excitement. The streets near the stadium were alive, packed with fans wrapped in scarves, jackets, and smiles that stretched from ear to ear. This wasn't just any night, it was the night everyone had been waiting for. A sold-out concert by one of the world's biggest bands, the Echoes. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, the crowd grew restless with eager impatience. From teenagers clutching their tickets like precious treasures to older fans who had been following the band since their early days, all shared one thing in common, a hunger to escape, even if just for a few hours, into a world made of music and light. Inside the stadium, the atmosphere was nothing short of magical. Thousands of voices hummed in unison, the murmur of anticipation growing louder by the minute. The giant LED screens flickered to life, casting vibrant colors across the sea of faces. The scent of popcorn mixed with the crisp evening air, and every heartbeat seemed to beat in sync with the distant thump of the sound system warming up. Then, the lights dimmed. A collective cheer erupted as the first chords filled the air. The music wasn't just heard, it was felt. Like waves crashing over a shore, the melodies swept through the crowd, stirring memories, hopes, and emotions buried deep inside. For those few hours, the world outside ceased to exist. Every song told a story of love, loss, triumph, and dreams. Fans sang along, some with tears in their eyes, others dancing with abandon. The energy was contagious, binding strangers together in a shared experience that was both intimate and monumental. Above it all, the massive screens captured moments that would have otherwise gone unnoticed. Friends laughing, couples holding hands, a child lifted onto a parent's shoulders. The stadium wasn't just a venue, it was a living tapestry of human connection, stitched together by the power of music. But amid the sea of happy faces, there was one pair who stood out, though not in the way anyone expected. As the cameras scanned the crowd, searching for that perfect moment of joy to broadcast, the spotlight landed on them. They were close enough to share a secret or maybe a mistake. The man wore a sharp jacket, his eyes flickering with a mix of excitement and something heavier, something unspoken. The woman beside him smiled nervously, her fingers twisting a ring around her own hand. They weren't just attendees. They were players in a story that was about to unfold on the world's stage. As the camera zoomed in, anticipation rippled through the audience. The moment was ripe for celebration, for connection. The crowd held its breath, waiting for a kiss, a wave, a sign of affection. But what happened next was anything but ordinary. This was the perfect night, filled with music, light, and possibility. But for these two, it was about to become a night they would never forget for all the wrong reasons. The kiss cam moment. The hum of the crowd was a living, breathing thing, a mosaic of voices, laughter, and anticipation that filled every inch of the Boston Stadium. As the band, the Echoes, played their heart out on stage, the energy was infectious. Yet, amid the sea of ecstatic fans, an age-old ritual was about to unfold. The kiss cam. It was a tradition that evoked a curious mix of delight and dread. Fans knew the drill well. The giant screen's camera would scan the crowd, hunting for pairs to spotlight, couples, friends, even strangers, inviting them to share a kiss, or at least a moment of affection broadcast for thousands to see. Some embraced it with joy, waving and puckering up. Others prayed the camera would pass them by. Tonight, the camera's lens glided over the audience, capturing smiling faces, joyous couples, and carefree friends. But then it stopped. It found them. The man and woman, standing just a few rows back from the front, were instantly spotlighted. The bright lights reflected off his tailored jacket, highlighting the tension in his stiff posture. Her eyes darted nervously, betraying a flicker of fear beneath her composed smile. The crowd hushed, sensing the anticipation that crackled in the air like static before a storm. The camera zoomed in, framing their faces on the giant screen for all to see. Expectations soared. Would they kiss? Would they smile shyly? Would they wave and blow a kiss to the crowd? But something was off. The man's jaw tightened, a flicker of unease shadowing his eyes. The woman's fingers trembled slightly, twisting a ring on her finger as she avoided looking directly at the camera. The chemistry of celebration was missing, replaced instead by hesitation and guarded silence. The crowd waited, breath held, the music fading into background noise. The kiss cam was supposed to be a moment of pure joy, a shared connection, but what played out was a silent, tense exchange loaded with meaning. She glanced sideways at him, eyes wide but fearful. He shifted uncomfortably, muscles taut beneath his jacket. For a moment it seemed as if she might lean in, just a fraction, only to recoil, pulling back as if invisible chains held her in place. Her hands rose to cover her face, a universal gesture of embarrassment and shame. The crowd, sensing the shift, murmured uneasily. Phones were raised. Some fans whispered theories, while others simply watched, captivated by the unexpected drama. The man lowered his head, attempting to duck out of the spotlight, but the cameras mercilessly tracked his movements. His shoulders slumped, revealing a man caught between worlds, one of public adoration and private turmoil. Above the hum of the stadium, the band's lead singer's voice cut through the tension with a wry smile. "Well, folks, either they're having a secret affair or they're just really shy." The crowd chuckled nervously, unsure how to react to the awkward scene playing out on the screens. The singer's light-hearted comment was an attempt to ease the mood, but for those watching the couple, the moment felt heavy, as if an invisible weight pressed down on their shoulders. The camera continued to linger, the man now crouched down, seemingly trying to disappear from view. The woman turned her back to the crowd, hiding behind her hands, as if shielding herself from the harsh gaze of thousands of strangers. What was supposed to be a fleeting moment of joy had transformed into a public spectacle of vulnerability and tension, an intimate scene laid bare for the entire stadium, and soon, the world. Unseen by the crowd, their hearts were pounding wildly, a cacophony of fear, regret, and helplessness crashing within them. Every eye was on them, every movement scrutinized, every expression dissected. They were no longer just two people enjoying a concert. They were actors in a silent play of secrets and consequences. Whispers began to spread throughout the crowd. Phones buzzed as the moment was captured, recorded, and shared within seconds. Social media lit up with speculation. Was this a scandal, a chance encounter, or something more? Behind the scenes, the couple grappled with their own private storm. The man's mind raced, thoughts spiraling between denial and acceptance. The woman's eyes brimmed with unshed tears, the weight of exposure crushing her spirit. In the midst of this chaos, the music played on, a bittersweet soundtrack to a moment that no one could forget. The joyous notes clashed with the silent story unfolding in the crowd, creating a haunting contrast between celebration and heartache. For those watching, the kiss cam moment became a mirror, reflecting the fragile nature of human connection. How quickly joy can turn to discomfort, how public moments can expose the most private vulnerabilities. And as the camera finally moved on, searching for the next couple to spotlight, the image of the man and woman lingered in the minds of the audience, etched into memory as a reminder that sometimes the most powerful stories aren't sung on stage, but whispered in the silence between the notes. The silent exchange. The stadium lights continued to blaze, bathing the crowd in vibrant colors as the echoes played their next song. Yet despite the music and celebration, the image of the couple lingered, not just on the giant screens, but in the minds of everyone who had witnessed their uneasy moment. What had passed between them in those few seconds on camera was a silent story, one without words but heavy with meaning. It was a conversation spoken through glances, gestures, and the faintest shifts in posture. No one heard their voices, no one caught their whispers, but the world watched as their emotions played out like a silent film, each subtle movement speaking volumes. She looked at him, eyes wide, searching. It was a look that begged for an answer, a sign, something to reassure her in the midst of the chaos. Her breath caught, and for a fleeting moment, the noise of the crowd seemed to fade away. He met her gaze, but there was no comfort there, only conflict, a storm of guilt, fear, and hesitation clouding his eyes. His jaw clenched tight, muscles twitching as if fighting an internal battle. The silence between them was thick and suffocating. It wasn't just the absence of words, but a chasm created by secrets too heavy to carry openly. The woman's fingers trembled as she nervously twisted the ring on her finger again, a ring that was a silent reminder of promises made long ago. The man's eyes flickered downwards briefly, avoiding the truth reflected in her gaze. Their surroundings faded into a blur. The music, the crowd, the flashing lights, all became background noise to the unspoken dialogue unfolding beneath the surface. In that moment, they were no longer part of the cheering crowd. They were two people caught in a web of choices and consequences, trapped in a moment of exposure that neither had prepared for. Around them, the audience remained oblivious to the depth of their turmoil. To most, it was just a quirky kiss cam moment, gone awkward. But to those who looked closer, it was a crack in the facade, a glimpse into the fragility of human connection. The man's hand twitched slightly, reaching out as if to touch her shoulder, but the movement was hesitant, faltering. She recoiled instinctively, a shudder passing through her frame. The space between them stretched wider, an invisible wall built from doubt and fear. Her eyes glistened, the weight of exposure pressing down like an invisible hand. For a moment, her lips quivered, and it seemed as though words might escape, but then the silence returned, thick and unyielding. The crowd's energy began to pick up again, voices rising as the band launched into an upbeat anthem. But for the couple, the moment had passed into something deeper, a silent exchange filled with pain, regret, and uncertainty. No one else could hear it, but their hearts spoke loud and clear. The unspoken apology, the plea for forgiveness, the desperate hope for a second chance, all woven into their body language and fleeting glances. As the camera pulled away, searching for the next smiling couple, the two remained locked in their private bubble of turmoil. The noise around them was a distant echo compared to the storm raging silently between them. And though the world moved on, their story was only beginning. Because sometimes the most powerful conversations happen in silence, where words fail and only the heart can speak. The frontman's words, The stadium was a swirling sea of lights and sound, alive with the energy of thousands of fans fully immersed in the music. The band The Echoes had just launched into one of their most beloved songs, and for a moment, the crowd moved as one, every voice raised, every heart beating in time. But amid this symphony of celebration, a single, unexpected moment lingered in the minds of many. The silent, awkward exchange caught on the kiss cam. As the tension in the crowd simmered, the band's lead singer, Jason Cole, took a brief pause between songs. He glanced up at the giant screens, where the image of the couple still flickered in the minds of thousands. The moment was ripe, raw, vulnerable, and undeniably human. With a smirk and a twinkle in his eye, Jason addressed the crowd. "Well, folks, either they're having a secret affair or they're just really shy." The stadium erupted in laughter, a mix of nervous chuckles and genuine amusement. Jason's words, light-hearted as they were, served as a momentary release of tension. He knew exactly what he was doing, acknowledging the awkwardness while keeping the mood alive and playful. But beneath the surface, the comment carried weight. It was a reminder that behind the flashing cameras and roaring crowds, real lives were tangled in complexities far beyond what anyone could see. Jason's quick wit didn't just entertain, it also humanized the moment, turning an uncomfortable spotlight into something almost relatable. For a fleeting second, the crowd connected not just through music, but through shared vulnerability. Yet, for the couple in the crowd, Jason's joke was bittersweet. It was an acknowledgement of their secret, a public hint at their private lives now on display. The man and woman exchanged glances again, the tension between them thicker than ever. As Jason launched into the next song, the music swelled, filling the stadium with a rush of sound and emotion. Fans danced and sang along, but the image of the couple on the giant screen haunted the edges of the evening. Social media was already buzzing. Clips of the kiss cam moment, paired with Jason's comment, spread like wildfire. Memes, hashtags, and speculations flooded timelines worldwide. The incident was no longer confined to the stadium. It had exploded into the digital realm, a story everyone wanted to watch, share, and dissect. For the couple, this digital storm was just beginning. Their private moment, captured and broadcast without consent, was now subject to the relentless gaze of the internet. Comments ranged from sympathy to judgment, from curiosity to condemnation. In the days that followed, the couple's lives would unravel in ways they never imagined. Relationships would be tested, careers threatened, and reputations questioned. Jason Cole's words, though intended as a playful quip, had unintentionally cast a spotlight that would shine far beyond the music and lights of that perfect night. But the frontman and the crowd could never truly understand the storm that brewed behind the scenes. Because for those caught in the glare of public attention, every joke, every whisper, every glance could become a headline, a viral moment, a turning point. And sometimes, the price of that spotlight is higher than anyone can imagine. The viral storm. The night of the concert was supposed to be a memory, a perfect moment frozen in time, filled with music, light, and connection. But as the final chords faded and the crowd began to disperse into the cool Boston night, an entirely new chapter of the story was just beginning. Unbeknownst to the couple caught in the spotlight, their private moment, awkward, tense, and unspoken, was about to ignite a wildfire of attention unlike anything they could have imagined. Among the thousands of fans packed into the stadium was a young woman named Emma, a passionate fan with her phone poised and ready to capture every highlight of the night. She had been singing along all evening, her energy contagious, her smile infectious. But when the kiss cam focused on the uneasy couple, Emma's instincts kicked in. She hit record. Her video captured every second, the hesitation, the nervous glances, the woman covering her face, the man crouching down to hide. It was raw, unfiltered, and brimming with unspoken tension. Emma didn't post the video immediately. At first, she thought it was just an awkward moment, a funny quirk of the kiss cam. But as the night went on, she noticed how much people around her were whispering, pointing, and trying to piece together what had happened. By the next morning, Emma shared the clip on her social media. She didn't caption it with judgment or speculation, simply "Boston concert kiss cam moment you won't believe." Within hours, the video exploded. Views skyrocketed into the millions. Comments poured in, ranging from sympathy and shock to outright gossip and harsh criticism. The clip was shared, reposted, and remixed, becoming a viral sensation. News outlets picked it up. Bloggers and influencers discussed it. Late-night talk shows joked about it. The moment that was supposed to be a brief flash on a stadium screen had become a global spectacle. For the couple, the viral storm was a tidal wave crashing over their lives. Privacy vanished overnight. Every glance, every gesture from that night was scrutinized and dissected. Friends and family began asking questions. Colleagues whispered in hallways. The woman's phone buzzed incessantly. Messages from strangers, news alerts, notifications of her face plastered across websites she had never visited. The man faced awkward confrontations at work, his reputation suddenly under an unrelenting microscope. Social media users took sides. Some sympathized, seeing them as victims of cruel public exposure. Others cast judgment, assuming guilt and betrayal. Memes surfaced, pairing the couple's faces with everything from movie scenes to cartoon characters. The emotional toll was immense. The couple found themselves at the center of a storm they hadn't asked for, unable to escape the relentless attention. Their relationship, already strained, began to buckle under the pressure. Conversations became fights. Trust, once fragile, started to crumble. The viral video wasn't just entertainment, it was a catalyst for real-world consequences. Yet in the eye of this digital tempest, a deeper question arose. What does it mean when a private moment becomes public property? In an age where smartphones record every second and social media amplifies every story, the line between personal and public blurs dangerously. For the couple, the concert night was supposed to be an escape, a chance to lose themselves in music and celebration. Instead, it became a turning point, a moment captured, shared, and judged by millions. Emma, the fan who shared the video, didn't anticipate the fallout. What began as a simple recording of a curious moment had morphed into a phenomenon with real human impact. As the video spread across continents and time zones, it sparked conversations about privacy, consent, and the power of social media. Some argued that in public spaces, moments like these were fair game. Others insisted that empathy and discretion should prevail, especially when lives were at stake. The viral storm was more than a trend. It was a mirror reflecting society's hunger for drama, for connection, and sometimes for schadenfreude. Behind the screens, behind the likes and shares, were two people struggling to reclaim their lives from the whirlwind of public scrutiny. And as the days turned into weeks, the viral storm showed no signs of slowing down. Because in the digital age, once a moment is captured, it never truly disappears. The unraveling lives. In the aftermath of the viral storm, life for the couple caught in the spotlight changed irrevocably. What had started as a fleeting, uncomfortable moment during a concert quickly spiraled into a relentless force that tore through the fabric of their lives, unraveling relationships and reputations with unforgiving speed. At first, the shock was overwhelming. Their phones were flooded with messages, some from concerned friends, others from strangers. News alerts announced their story as breaking news. Social media platforms buzzed with speculation, judgment, and even ridicule. The couple was suddenly trapped in a whirlwind they hadn't chosen to enter, forced into a public spotlight they couldn't escape. For the woman, the impact was deeply personal. Friends who once offered support now hesitated, unsure how to approach the scandal. Family members struggled with their own feelings of disappointment and confusion. The whispers followed her everywhere, at work, in public, even within her closest circles. Trust, once taken for granted, became fragile and tentative. Her relationship with the man became a battleground. Conversations that once revolved around love and dreams devolved into accusations and defenses. Every glance, every word was analyzed through the lens of suspicion. The emotional strain was suffocating, eroding the foundation of what they had built together. The man faced his own battles. At work, colleagues whispered behind closed doors. Rumors circulated that threatened his professional reputation and future. The once confident and respected figure found himself isolated and under scrutiny, forced to answer questions he never anticipated. Their social lives fractured, invitations to gatherings dwindled as acquaintances distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. Even mutual friends chose sides, deepening the divide. The couple's mental health suffered. Anxiety, depression, and feelings of helplessness took root, fueled by the relentless attention and public judgment. Sleep became elusive, and the weight of constant exposure pressed heavily on their shoulders. Legal concerns surfaced as well. The unauthorized recording and widespread distribution of their private moment raised questions about consent and privacy rights. While public spaces often blur those lines, the couple consulted attorneys to understand their options, though the damage had already been done. Amid the chaos, they found moments of solace in each other, but those were fleeting. The very thing that once united them, their shared history and love, was now overshadowed by distrust and fear. The exposure had created a fissure too wide to bridge easily. Friends and family urged them to seek counseling, to find ways to cope with the fallout. Some argued for moving away, starting fresh somewhere far from the judgmental eyes, but the scars remained, invisible yet deeply felt. Meanwhile, the media continued to dissect their story, often reducing them to caricatures in headlines and clickbait articles. The complexity of their lives was flattened into gossip and spectacle. The viral moment, once just a blip in a night filled with music, had become a defining event. It shaped their futures in ways neither could have imagined. Their reputations, painstakingly built over years, now hung in the balance. Careers were questioned, friendships tested, and personal integrity scrutinized under a harsh light. The couple's experience became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of how quickly private moments can become public property and how devastating the consequences can be. But beyond the public eye, their story was also one of resilience. Despite the unraveling, they clung to hope. Hope that healing was possible, that trust could be rebuilt, and that life could someday return to a semblance of normalcy. In the shadow of the viral storm, the real battle was just beginning. One fought not in headlines or social media feeds, but in the quiet, painful work of rebuilding lives fractured by exposure and judgment. The private battle, behind the flashing cameras and the roar of the crowd, beyond the endless scroll of social media posts and viral videos, there was a quieter, darker struggle unfolding. It was a battle waged not in public squares or online feeds, but behind closed doors, in the private spaces where vulnerability and raw emotion took center stage. For the couple caught in the spotlight, the viral moment was not just a public spectacle. It was a trigger that unearthed a flood of regret, guilt, and emotional turmoil that neither had anticipated. Days after the storm had passed over their heads, when the noise finally quieted enough for silence to settle in, the weight of what had happened pressed heavily upon them. She found herself replaying the night over and over, dissecting every glance, every twitch of her body language. "Why didn't I just smile?" she whispered into the darkness of their shared apartment. "Why did I freeze? What did everyone think I was hiding?" The questions gnawed at her mind, spiraling into a cycle of self-doubt. Regret became a constant companion. The moment, though brief, had left a scar deeper than any of the crowd could see. He carried his own burden, a crushing guilt that was impossible to shake. He blamed himself for their predicament, for the way things unfolded on the giant screen, for the pain they now faced. "I should have protected her," he confessed one night, voice heavy with sorrow. I should have stopped the cameras from finding us, but I couldn't. Their conversations became fraught with tension, layered with unspoken accusations and pain. They longed to find comfort in each other, yet the silence between them grew wider, filled with walls built from fear and mistrust. Sleep offered little relief. Night after night they lay awake, haunted by the faces of strangers, judging, mocking, questioning. The digital world had made their private pain a public spectacle, and the scars ran deep. Therapy sessions were suggested by friends and family. Initially met with hesitation, they soon realized they needed a safe space to confront their demons. In those rooms, away from prying eyes, they began to unpack their emotions, layer by layer. The guilt, the shame, the regret. They confronted the overwhelming fear of being seen, not just on screens, but in their rawest, most vulnerable form. The therapist's words echoed softly. You are more than a moment captured. Your worth is not defined by public opinion. Slowly, they learned to untangle the complex web of feelings that bound them. They discovered that healing was not a linear path. It was a series of small steps, sometimes forward, sometimes back. Yet despite the progress, the struggle to move forward remained daunting. Trust, once fractured, was difficult to rebuild. The shadows of that night lingered in their minds, a constant reminder of how quickly life could change. Family gatherings became tests of endurance. Friends' questions, even well-meaning ones, sometimes reopened old wounds. The couple learned to navigate a new social landscape, one where discretion was a shield and silence a refuge. The man found solace in long walks through the city's quieter streets, searching for peace in the familiar rhythm of footsteps and distant traffic. The woman sought comfort in journaling, pouring her thoughts onto paper in a desperate attempt to make sense of the chaos inside her. Together, they grappled with a new reality, one where privacy felt like a luxury lost, and where every interaction was tinged with the fear of judgment. But amidst the darkness, glimmers of hope began to shine. Moments of laughter, however brief, reminded them of the bond they once shared. Small acts of kindness, from friends who refused to turn away, from strangers who sent words of encouragement, offered a fragile lifeline. The private battle was far from over, but the couple understood one thing clearly: they were not alone. Their story, though marked by pain and hardship, was also one of resilience. It was a testament to the strength it takes to face one's darkest moments and keep moving forward. Because sometimes, the most profound victories are not about public triumphs, but the quiet courage found in simply choosing to fight another day. The public judgment. In today's digital age, a single moment captured on camera can spark a global conversation, but not always a kind one. The couple's uneasy kiss-cam moment quickly morphed from a private awkwardness into a public spectacle under the relentless gaze of the internet. As the video spread like wildfire, so did the online reactions, a flood of opinions, judgments, memes, and jokes that swirled through social media platforms at dizzying speeds. For the couple, the public judgment was a second storm, one that threatened to drown out any chance of privacy or peace. Memes became the currency of commentary. Faces frozen in embarrassment were edited into countless humorous images, paired with captions ranging from sarcastic to downright cruel. The couple's hesitation was reinterpreted as betrayal, shyness twisted into guilt, and silence into secrecy. Hashtags trended, each carrying a mixture of mockery and sympathy, though the former often drowned out the latter. Users debated fiercely. Some defended the couple as victims of invasive public scrutiny, while others painted them as symbols of dishonesty and scandal. Comments under the video ranged from supportive to savage. "Everyone makes mistakes," one user wrote, "but this is a clear sign of something deeper." Another fired back, "If you don't want to be seen, don't stand in front of a camera." The divide was stark, highlighting society's complex relationship with privacy, judgment, and empathy. News outlets picked up the story, framing it with catchy headlines designed to draw clicks and attention. Pundits and commentators weighed in, turning the couple's personal moment into a national conversation about trust, fidelity, and public shaming. The couple, however, had little control over the narrative being spun. Each article, tweet, or video clip added another layer of exposure, amplifying the scrutiny they faced in their daily lives. At work, colleagues whispered behind their backs. At home, friends asked awkward questions. Even strangers in the street recognized them, sometimes offering unsolicited advice or pointed glances. The pressure was suffocating. Every interaction felt like a test, a potential moment when the past would be dredged up and dissected anew. Mental health professionals noted a surge in cases linked to social media harassment and public shaming. The couple's experience was far from unique, but it was a stark example of how quickly online judgment can become overwhelming and damaging. Yet amid the harsh spotlight, some voices of reason emerged. Online communities formed spaces of support, reminding the couple and others like them that compassion still existed in the digital world. Friends and strangers alike sent messages of encouragement, urging empathy over condemnation. These small acts of kindness were lifelines in a sea of criticism, but the scars left by public judgment were deep. The couple struggled to reconcile their private pain with the public's often merciless gaze. The experience reshaped their understanding of identity and reputation, showing how fragile both could be when placed under a microscope. They learned the hard way that in the age of social media, a moment of vulnerability can become a permanent label, and once the world has judged, forgiveness, whether from others or from oneself, can be the hardest battle of all. The lesson learned. In the quiet aftermath of the chaos, when the glare of public scrutiny finally began to dim, the couple found themselves facing the most difficult questions, not from the outside world, but from within. What had this experience truly taught them about privacy, trust, and the fragile threads that bind human connection? The viral video had exposed more than just a moment on a giant screen. It peeled back layers of their lives, revealing vulnerabilities they had long kept hidden, and forcing them to confront realities they could no longer ignore. Privacy, they learned, is a delicate treasure in the digital age, a concept once taken for granted, now eroded by smartphones, social media, and an insatiable public appetite for spectacle. A moment that should have been theirs alone had become a public property, shared, dissected, and judged without their consent. They understood that privacy is not merely the absence of observation, but the right to control one's own narrative. Losing that control had been both painful and disorienting. It was a lesson in humility, but also in the need for boundaries that technology and culture are still struggling to define. Trust, too, was redefined in the aftermath. Between themselves, trust had been fractured, challenged by suspicion and fear. Yet paradoxically, the ordeal also forced them to rebuild a new foundation, one forged through vulnerability, honesty, and the willingness to face their flaws together. They learned that trust is not static. It's a living, breathing part of relationships that requires constant care and courage. And once broken, it doesn't simply snap back. It must be carefully mended, stitch by stitch. Beyond their own relationship, they saw how trust extends into the social fabric, where assumptions and judgments can quickly erode the bonds between people. The public's rush to label and condemn had taught them how fragile human connection truly is, especially in a world where empathy is often overshadowed by sensationalism. This fragile nature of connection became their lens for understanding the wider world. They realized that behind every viral moment, every headline, and every online comment, there are real people with stories, fears, and hearts just as vulnerable as their own. Their experience became a reminder, a cautionary tale about the cost of exposure and the importance of compassion. They came to see that empathy is a choice, one that requires stepping beyond the comfort of judgment and opening oneself to the complexity of human experience. In moments of reflection, they recognize the paradox of connection in the modern age. Technology has made us closer than ever, yet often leaves us feeling more isolated and exposed. A single camera flash can capture a private moment, and a single tweet can amplify it to millions, yet the depth of understanding often remains shallow. Through their pain, they discovered the power of silence, not as avoidance, but as a sacred space where healing can begin. Not every story needs to be told in full to the world. Some deserve the quiet respect of privacy. They also found hope in small, meaningful connections. A kind word from a stranger, a genuine apology, a patient listener. These became the anchors that helped them navigate the storm. Ultimately, the lesson learned was profound yet simple. Human connection, trust, and privacy are fragile gifts that must be protected and nurtured. When shattered, they leave wounds that take time and care to heal, but when honored, they create the foundation for resilience and growth. As they moved forward, the couple committed to carrying these lessons with them, both as a shield and a guide. Their story was no longer just about a viral moment. It was about the enduring strength found in vulnerability, the courage to rebuild, and the wisdom gained from pain. And in sharing their journey, they hope to inspire others to look beyond the surface, to seek understanding over judgment, to value privacy in an age of exposure, and to remember that behind every moment, every face, there is a human story worth honoring. The unseen consequences. In the blink of an eye, a moment is captured, frozen forever in pixels and light. A breath held, a glance exchanged, a hesitation felt. This moment, fleeting and fragile, carries with it the power to shift lives, unravel stories, and change destinies. No one sees the threads that stretch beneath the surface, the invisible strings that connect this instant to the countless moments before and after. The unseen consequences ripple outward like waves on a still pond, touching lives in ways both subtle and profound. For the couple caught in the spotlight, that one hesitant glance on the kiss cam was a seed planted deep within their shared history. It blossomed not only into public spectacle, but into a cascade of change that neither could have predicted. What seemed like a simple, awkward moment became a prism reflecting the complexities of trust, love, and human frailty. The camera did not capture the depth of their story, the fears, the regrets, the hopes whispered in the quiet shadows of their hearts. Instead, it distilled their lives into a snapshot, stripped of context and nuance, leaving behind only the raw edges of emotion, exposed to a world eager to judge. But consequences are rarely one-dimensional. Within the chaos and pain emerged unexpected gifts. The lessons learned, the resilience forged, the courage to face truths once hidden. The exposure forced them to confront parts of themselves and each other that had long been buried. It stripped away illusions and demanded honesty, even when it was hard. Through the unraveling, they discovered strength in vulnerability, a paradox that lies at the heart of every human connection. Yet, the consequences also left scars. Relationships strained, reputations challenged, privacy shattered. The cost of that moment extended far beyond the stadium lights, reaching into the quiet corners of their everyday lives. The couple's story became a mirror, reflecting a broader truth. In a world saturated by instant sharing and viral moments, the line between public and private blurs dangerously. A single frame can rewrite narratives, define identities, and change futures. What was once personal becomes communal property, subject to the whims of a digital audience hungry for drama. The unseen consequences remind us to tread carefully, to remember the humanity behind every viral clip, every meme, every whispered rumor, because behind every public moment lies a private story, rich with complexity, pain, and hope. And sometimes, the true impact of a moment is not visible until much later, when the dust settles, the screens go dark, and the real work of healing and understanding begins. For the couple, the journey continues. a path marked by both loss and growth, by shattered illusions and newfound clarity. They move forward, carrying the weight of their past, but also the promise of a future shaped not solely by a single moment, but by the strength they found to endure it. In the end, the unseen consequences are a testament to the power of time, perspective, and forgiveness. They remind us that life is fragile and beautiful, unpredictable yet full of possibility, and that sometimes the moments we think define us are just the beginning of a deeper story, one waiting to be told with empathy, courage, and heart. Beyond the spotlight, the lights have dimmed, the music has faded, and the crowd has dispersed into the night. Yet the story lingers, not on screens or in headlines, but in the quiet spaces between moments, in the hearts of those who lived it. A single moment, captured and shared, changed everything, for better and for worse. It exposed vulnerabilities, tested trust, and unraveled lives, but it also revealed resilience, the power of empathy, and the courage to heal. Behind every viral clip lies a human story, complex, imperfect, and deeply real. Stories like this remind us that what we see is only a fragment of a much larger truth. In a world that moves faster than ever, where moments are recorded and shared in an instant, it's easy to forget the cost of exposure. To forget that behind every image is a person with fears, hopes, and dreams just like our own. Privacy is no longer guaranteed. Trust is more fragile than ever. Yet within this fragility lies an opportunity to choose kindness over judgment, understanding over assumptions. The couple's journey teaches us that healing is possible even after the harshest storms, that love, though tested, can survive the weight of public scrutiny. Their story is not just about a moment on a giant screen. It's about the enduring human spirit, the strength found in vulnerability, the bonds rebuilt through honesty, and the hope that lights the path forward. As we close this chapter, may we carry with us a deeper awareness of the stories behind the stories. May we remember to look beyond the surface and to honor the humanity in each of us. Because in the end, it's not the moments captured by cameras that define us. It's how we rise after the fall, how we forgive, and how we choose to move forward. And that is a story worth telling. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from? Have you ever experienced a moment that changed everything? And if you want more stories that touch the heart and open the mind, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us we're all human, all connected, and all worthy of understanding. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.